Completing the Pokédex was something I thought I could never do just because I didn't really have the patience for it, especially in the older games, as leveling up Pokemon really sucked for a while. And let's be real, who's taking this level 5 Beldum and training it all the way up to level 45? You had to beat the game just to get this thing. There's no point in even training it, but I don't know, maybe I'm just not crazy enough. But why not give it another shot, but in the remakes Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. But not only do I want to complete the Pokédex with just one copy of the game, I want to do a Living Dex. So instead of just getting one Pokemon and fully evolving it, I want to get every form of every Pokemon because I just think it looks better. So let's get started. For my starter, I went for Trico. Now there wasn't a particular reason for it, I just thought picking something different was nice for a change. Other than that, we meet May, who will be one of our rivals, and for our first fight I almost lost. It was kind of crazy because I should have lost, but she didn't say anything, so we got away with it. She does tell us how to use the Dex Nav and how it's a new way to encounter Pokemon, and it's a lot easier to find Pokemon you haven't encountered yet as well. But that's where I draw the line, as it would be too easy if I use that. So instead, I'll use it for rare items that some Pokemon can hold, like Moonstones and stuff. In the first few routes, I get the same old Pokemon you can find here, like Zigzagoon, Wurmple, Poochyena, Lotad, Wingull, while it took a bit longer to find the rare ones like Ralts and Surskit. It sucks too because in this game, the Pokemon could pop out of the grass, and it was easy to tell when it was a Ralts, so having to ignore it and find it the regular way felt like torture. In Petalburg City, we meet our other rival being Wally, who we actually don't see that often, but he does give us something later on that will be a lifesaver, but I'll talk about that later. On Route 104, the only thing I can find is a Tailo, which kinda threw me off, as in the originals you could find a Marill, so I wonder what else changed. With that, I head to Petalburg Woods and end up finding a Slack Off before anything else, which surprised me because I think this is the hardest one to find, so that saved me some trouble. And then not too long after, I catch a Silcoon, Cascoon, and Shroomish. We also run into our first Team Aqua Grunt as he tries to take some papers from this old guy, so we beat him up, and doing this right here is the reason why we end up on a flying green lizard fighting an alien. What happened to catching them all? The last place we can head to is Route 116, and I catch a Whismur, Nincada, and a Skitty. The last Pokemon we could get is a Makuhito in Roxborough City, and it's an in-game trade, so we had to grab another Slack Off, and that's when it hit me. I already forgot to catch a couple repeats since we can't find some of these guys anywhere else. So after catching some of those Pokemon, Trico evolved, and now we can face Roxanne. But I messed up big time as I was recording the bottom screen for that whole fight, so I don't have any footage of it, but just know I spammed Absorb to take them out. Once we leave the gym, it turns out the old man from earlier still got robbed by Team Aqua, and we help him get his stuff back, which also led us to meeting his boss and having to run errands for them, so how fun. The first place we head to is Dewford to deliver a letter to someone named Steven, so to Dewford we go as I head inside Granite Cave and catch a Zubat, Abra, and Geodude. And for some reason, Geodude was the one that took the longest to find. You'd think it would be Abra, but no. On a different note, someone gives us an Old Rod, and I was able to get a Magikarp, Tentacool, and if I head back to Route 102, I grab a Goldeen. With not much else to do, we face Brawly, but not having a real team, I kinda just brought what I had on hand, and luckily for me, Ross was putting in some crazy work, taking out Machop and Makuhita with confusion. Now that's what I'm talking about. We were underleveled as well, and I'm starting to feel like a kid again, just squashing gym leaders. With Brawly beaten, we can finally give that letter to Steven, and the last thing we have to do for the scientist is to deliver the goods to someone in Slayport City. But it's never that simple as we run into Team Aqua again, trying to steal the items again. But after beating them up, we run into their leader Archie, and he goes on about how people have ruined the environment and he's gonna fix it, but doesn't say too much and leaves. Now that we have safely given the items to this man, we can finally start catching Pokemon again, and on Route 110 I catch Electrike, Oddish, and Plusle. Now there is a couple more Pokemon we can catch here, but they weren't popping up, so I made them pop up by using Sweet Scent. The real goal is to find a Minun here because I know you can get it and I'm not crazy, okay? And while I was doing that, I also found a Magnemite and Voltorb, and it wasn't until 16 Horde encounters later where it finally popped up. So yeah, that was super annoying to find. So now that we have a good chunk of Pokemon, I decided to start evolving them as I play through the game instead of waiting to the end like I usually do. So every so often I'll just talk about what evolved, and for training I just went around and faced everyone I came across, and so far we got Dustox and Beautyfly, and since we can't catch anything else I headed to Mauville City, but we came across May again, and this time she was coming back for revenge. With Combuskin, she uses 2 flame charges to knock out Surskit, and this right here is when I knew I was gonna have a tough time just cause the only real member I have is Grovyle, so we try attacking but we weren't doing anything. So I switch into Abra to Sack and then send out Slack off to use Yawn, but that's all we managed to do as they wake up next turn and use a crit flame charge to one-shot us. We sent out Shroomish and miss a stun spore, but for some reason they used double kick and we were able to put them to sleep from Shroomish's ability. After that we use Leech Seed before Combuskin wakes up again and knocks us out, so we send out Grovyle and land a Leaf Blade to knock them out. Wow, that was something. I should probably get some team members cause that was nuts. In Mauville City we see Wally again and we battle, but we mopped the floor with him, and that's how the fight was supposed to go. Once we were done with that we had around 117, and after fighting a couple trainers, Abra turned into a Kadabra and Slackoff evolved into a Vigoroth. Now we can catch a couple more Pokemon like Volbeat, Roselia, and Marill, while I had a harder time finding whatever you call this thing. And yeah, it was just something else. I tried getting a Pokemon that was the same level and using a Repel to try to find it faster, but we were still having no luck, and it took about 30 minutes to find a Pokemon I hate. But luckily that was the only Pokemon I hate that much, so we're good on that. Back in Mauville City we can finally get a bike, so I head back to Granite Cave to get a Sableye and an Aeron. And honestly I probably should have waited to beat the gym because now we have to backtrack to get a Nose Pass. In any case, I was able to evolve a couple more Pokemon, and now we got a Breloom, Masquerain, and Kirlia. And I made sure I evolved Shroomish too because we were spamming Mach Punch to beat up Watson. Maybe I should do a video where I play Pokemon like how I did when I was a kid. I think that would be really fun. I'ma just be super over leveled. But I'm getting a bit sidetracked here, and now that I unlocked Rock Smash, I went looking for that Nose Pass and ran into 8 Geodudes before I found one. And this is what I mean when I say I get annoyed with some of these Pokemon, because when I was trying to find it the first time, it took a solid 20 minutes to find, and then here we find it in 2. Our next stop is Route 111, and I grabbed 2 Numels and a Machop. The next place I head to is the Fiery Path, and now that I think about it, I'm missing a Pokemon. I need to grab a Gulpin, and I feel like seeing a Gulpin on Route 10 is very iconic when it comes to this route, and somehow it never crossed my mind that I needed one. So I grabbed 2 of those before heading back to the Fiery Path and catch a Turkle, Slugma, 2 Grimers, and a Coughing, which took a really long time to find. I even tried doing horde encounters just to find it, and we still didn't have any luck. It wasn't until when I was about to quit when we found it, so it was just messing with me the whole time. So I did have to catch another one, but I'll do it later. On Route 113, we run into May, and she talks about meeting a professor named Cosmo in the next town, and she leaves, but we can't leave just yet, as we got a couple Pokemon to catch first, like Spinda, Sandshrew, Skarmory, and I finally evolved Magikarp into a Gyarados. In Fallivore Town, we run into May again, and it turns out Professor Cosmo has been taken away by Team Aqua. So we have to help him, but before we do, I got a couple more Pokemon to catch, so I get 2 Swablues, 2 Lombres, a Seviper, and also evolved another Slackoff. Alright, now we can help him. It turns out he's at Meteor Falls, and we save him by having a double battle with May, but it didn't matter as they still take the meteorite from Professor Cosmo, and they take off to Mount Chimney as we take the professor back to his lab. Now that we dropped them off, we can finally chase after them and run into Archie, and they tell us with the meteorite they might be able to make it into a Megastone or even a Keystone, but he's not going to tell us everything, and we fight. But we also didn't have much trouble fighting him as Vigoroth and Breloom were having an easy time beating his Pokemon. After the fight, he gets a call saying they found the real orbs, and now he doesn't need the meteorite anymore, so he gives it back as he heads to Mount Pyre, but we can't go there just yet, so we head to the Jagged Pass and catch a Spoink. And I also just realized we never gave back the meteorite, but oh well. With not having much else to do, we can go ahead and face Flannery, so with Masquerain we use Bubble Beam to take out all of our Pokemon. And I'm surprised we were able to do that with just Masquerain. I thought for sure we were going to go down at one point, but Masquerain had different plans. Once we leave, we meet up with Meg and she gives us these goggles that we can use for the desert, so let's grab those Pokemon as well. And since we're here, we can pick up a fossil, and I grab a claw fossil, and I'll revive it later just cause I forgot about it. But yeah, I picked up 3 Trampinches, a Baltoy, and Catnia. Once I caught those, I remembered that I still needed to get a Lunatone because I didn't get it the first time around because we took the professor back home. So it didn't take long to find, but it did take a couple tries to catch since it just wouldn't stay in the ball. The last Pokemon I grab is actually an egg we can get from this old lady in Lava Ridge Town, and with that we can head to Peterburg City and face Norman. And it was mostly a drawn out fight as we were constantly putting Slacking to sleep as we used Power Up Punch, slowly doing more damage each time. And once we got them to red HP, they healed up again, which backfired on them as we kept using Power Up Punch. So once they go down, his other 2 Pokemon didn't stand a chance, so another gym down. And now that we have access to Surf, we can pick up a Good Rod as well and grab a couple of familiar Pokemon and some new ones. Now I did catch a couple repeats already, but it either turns out you can't get the evolved form in the wild anymore, or I forgot about it, or it took too long to find the first time around. So I catch 2 Ralts, a Poochyena, a Surskit, and then in Petalburg City I catch an Azumarill and 2 Corefishes. Now I did catch a lot more Pokemon, but embarrassingly enough, I ran out of storage on my computer, so all the footage is lost. I was so butthurt, I'm not gonna lie. But I do have some of them organized in a box, and here they are. It was mostly the rare ones like Skitty, Coughing, and Gulpin. On Route 114, we can catch a Barboach. Actually, you can catch this thing in a lot of places, but I don't think it matters. But anyway, I had a hard time finding it as well. It felt like 45 minutes, but it was actually 15. I don't care, this thing still sucked. I also tried finding a Golbat, a Whelmer, and a Pelipper, but I was having the same problem with all 3. I couldn't find them, so I gave up. For now, anyway. The last place I head to is Route 115 and catch 2 Jigglypuffs, and that's it, as it turns out you can't catch a Swellow here anymore. Also, while I was running around looking for those 3 Pokemon I couldn't find, Grovyle evolved into Sceptile, and finally something good happened. So as I was heading to Route 118, I realized I should put 2 Pokemon in the daycare and just leave them there to rot and gain levels. So I put Slugma and Grimer in there because I hate those Pokemon, and the less I have to train them, the better. On Route 118, we meet Steven again and we do a little side quest with Latios as it needs help with something. So after riding around on it, we find out that Team Aqua wanted to capture Latios and use its power of Mega Evolution for their plans. So with Steven, we beat them up and now we have our first legendary. Thank you. I would have dreaded catching this thing if it was a roaming Pokemon. Side note, this guy is an admin and his name is Matt. I just didn't know where to fit it in. So going back to Route 118, we finally find that Pelipper that I can't believe I found in 5 minutes. In the grass! I wasted so much time, I could have just gotten it here. But anyways, I was able to get everything else like Kelkion, Liloon, and Carvana. And another Pokemon we can't get anymore is a Manectrike. Now, something I want to talk about is that I'm doing this based off memory, so there's no list that I have telling me what I need to get because I have a pretty good memory where everything is at. But it turns out you actually can't get a good chunk of evolutions anymore, like Swellow, Manectrike, Magneton, Mightyena, so I had to backtrack to get their first forms again, but I'll do that a bit later. On Route 119, we catch a Trophius and 2 Glooms before we did the Weather Institute stuff, where we run into another admin named Shelly, and it sounds like she isn't too sure about the plan Archie has in mind, and tells us where he's at, so that was interesting. We also get a cast form, and before we can catch anything else, we face May again, but we finally got our revenge as we beat her up very easily. Now we can get 2 Feebasses, and passing by Fortree City, I grab an Absol and evolve Numel into a Camerupt. And I also get a Crawdon as well. With that, I face Winona, and everything was going smoothly up until Altaria came out. It wasn't that it was knocking out our Pokemon, it was more like the battle was getting dragged out as it would use Roost and Cotton Guard, and since I didn't have a good counter to our Pokemon, we weren't doing much damage, so we would have to put them to sleep and use Power Up Punch to raise our attack, and it took a little bit, but we were able to use Slash to knock them out, and that fight was a bit challenging, or more annoying I guess. After the fight, we also get a Mightyena. Now that we have access to fly, I go back to Route 118 and using the Dex nav, I search for a Pelipper that has a lucky egg and steal it. So now we can train Pokemon even faster as the lucky egg gives us a boost in XP, and we finally evolve Swablu and Trampinch as they've been on the team for way too long. On Route 121, the only thing we can find is a Shuppet, so I head straight to Mount Pyre and catch another Shuppet and 2 Duskulls before we run into Team Aqua again, and they steal that orb they had mentioned before. We try to stop Archie, but he got away as Matt acted like bait again, so after beating him up, it turns out they're heading to Slateport to steal a submarine. But before we can chase after him, the people that were guarding the orbs tell us that the orbs should never be separated, and yeah, they definitely found the real orbs. That's concerning. Now, I would go after him, but I don't know, I still got some Pokemon to catch, and I saw a Safari Zone on my way here, so I think I'm gonna do that first. But before I head down Mount Pyre, I catch a Metatite, 2 Vulpixes, and a Chimecho, and also evolve Gulpin into a Swalot. But hey, before we get to the next part of the video, if you've been liking the video so far, like the video as it really helps out the channel, and with that, let's get back to the game. Alright, Safari Zone time. Using an Acro Bike, I catch a Giraffe Rig and 2 Dolphins, oh my, Donphans, and a Heracross. And with a Mach Bike, I catch 2 Rhyhorns and a Pinsir. With that in mind, in no particular order, I also catch 2 Psyducks, 2 Pikachus, 2 Doduos, a Xatu, a Wobbuffet. And while I was catching these Pokemon, I realized that I need to breed a couple Pokemon to get their baby forms, and I totally forgot about that. This sucks too, because we can't catch a Ditto until post game, and even then it's some trouble as we have to wait for a certain island to appear. So it's just gonna take a while. And this sucks too, cause I have a male Sceptile, so I gotta see if I'm gonna look for this Ditto or not, cause I don't even know if we can find it. In any case, I decided to take a break from catching Pokemon and see what I need for breeding, training, and repeats. Now, I did do this off screen because like I said before, I didn't have much space on my computer, even after making space. But here's the aftermath. For Pokemon I needed to get again, we got Electrike, Tailo, Carvanha, Poochyena, and Gloom. And I had to get another Carvanha because I evolved Sharpedo. For Gloom, I forgot about Blossom. For Electrike, Tailo, and Poochyena, well, you can't find their evolutions anymore. For Pokemon I need to get for breeding, I got a Marill, Roselia, Chimecho, and Pikachu. And for everything else, I got lucky. Thank you for that. The last thing I did was evolve a good chunk of Pokemon I had in my box, and now we have a Gardevoir, Swellow, Curlia, Dusclops, Weezing, Banette, Ninjask, Sandshrew, Dugtrio, and Grunpig. Now, I would have had a Shed Ninja, but I didn't have a Pokeball in my bag, so that sucks. I didn't think it mattered which ball we needed to have, but yes it does. You gotta have a Pokeball. So now I gotta go find another one. With all that done, you kind of forget about Archie stealing a submarine, so I ran over there to go deal with that, but we were too late as he gets away as Team Aqua uses themselves as bait. So after beating them up, we head to Team Aqua's hideout in Lily Cove City, but that's when May comes in and wants to have a battle, so terrible timing on her part, but oh well. With Vibrava, we use 2 Dragon Breaths to knock out Swellow, and she sends out Wailord. So we switch into Sceptile and use 2 Mega Drains to knock them out, and her next Pokemon is Blaziken. So we switch right back into Vibrava and use Earthquake, but they live on red HP and land a Blaze Kick to knock us out. So we sit on Masquerain and it was all over from there. After the fight, she says that it's about time she heads home as her Pokedex is pretty much complete. And okay, now she gotta be cheating. How is she already done? I still need like half the Dex. Anyways, after we say bye to May, Curlia finally evolved into a Gardevoir. And now we can go back to fighting Team Aqua, and after wandering around in their hideout for a while, I was lost. We ended up facing a bunch of trainers and evolving 2 Pokemon, and now we have a Golduck and Flygon. I also ran into Electroid, so I caught that. And we eventually find Archie, and it turns out we were too late again as they were able to upgrade the submarine and escape as Matt keeps us busy. After the fight, Archie is long gone and Matt tells us that he's deep underwater around Moss Deep City and there's no way we can chase him down there, and since he was low-key right, we give up for now and we head over to Moss Deep City to pick up a Super Rod. Finally. Now that we have that, we can finally get that Whelmer I've been trying to get for ages now, and it's been bothering me for so long. I also grab a Tentacruel by surfing around and 2 Staryus in Lily Cove City. The next place I head to is Shoal Cave, and I happen to get very lucky as it happened to be low tide, meaning I could head to the deepest part of the cave and find 3 Snowrunts, 2 Celios, a Spheal, and a Golbat. And I'm being so honest when I say for a couple years I didn't know there was 2 areas to Shoal Cave, as every time I've been in it, it's been high tide, so I thought Snorunt was a myth. Alright, the last thing I did before facing the gym was evolve 3 more Pokemon as I faced a couple trainers, and now I have a Slacking, Manectric, and Medicham. Okay, let's face Tate and Liza. And we were hitting some crazy combos as we used Bubble Beam and then High Jump Kick to knock out Solrock, and then Bug Buzz and Shadow Ball to take out Lunatone. Once we leave the gym, we see this green beam shoot up into the air as Steven comes up and tells us that we should talk privately. He tells us what that beam is and how it's proof that a seal has been undone, and it's home to an ancient Pokemon deep beneath Route 128 where it sleeps, and it turns out a certain Pokemon sealed it away so that no one could ever awaken this Pokemon and cause disaster, but now that Team Aqua has broken that seal. Well, yeah, I don't know if we're going to make it out of this one, but not giving up hope, we are still going to try and stop them before they actually awaken the legendary Pokemon. And that's when Steven gives us the HM for Dive so that we can make that happen. And it was a joke. I don't want to do this. But not really having a choice, we dive underwater and find the seafloor cavern and find the submarine that Archie had stolen and explore the area. We fight a bunch of grunts, solve different puzzles, where we finally reach Archie as he tells us that he finally found the Pokemon that he was looking for, being Kyogre. He tells us that we as humans have ignored Pokemon in nature for our own pursuit of desires and needs. In the process, we created a world that's broken, so he's gonna make it right by resetting the world to how it once was. So we try to stop him, but after beating him up, it didn't change anything, even when his own crew try to warn him and tell him that it's not what he thinks it's gonna be, which pushes him even further and he awakens Kyogre. Now that Kyogre is awake, it heads to the surface where it summons a heavy rainstorm, and Archie is informed that something is wrong, but he chooses to ignore it, while we get told that Archie made a mistake about how powerful Kyogre actually is, and how its version of resetting the world is by killing every living thing on this planet first. But Shelly doesn't lose hope and tells us there's no point standing here, let's leave, as Archie stays in the back and starts to think what he did was a mistake. Once we reach the surface, we see how bad it's getting, as Archie only wanted a world where Pokemon can live in peace, and now we're all gonna die. But Maxie says we have to do what we can, and says Kyogre is probably gonna head to Sootopolis City, as that's where the Cave of Origin is at, and there Kyogre will find the energy it needs to get back to its primal form to completely destroy the world. So they make their way over there, and right before we do as well, Steven appears and says how bad things are getting, and that we should go to Sootopolis. Side note, Maxie's been here since the beginning, but he didn't really do anything until now, so yeah. Back to the story. So we head to the Cave of Origin and we get an Aqua suit before we head inside and encounter Kyogre for ourselves. Once he appears, we ride on his back as he takes us further into the sea and he gets into his final form and mega evolves. We fight and try to catch him, but I'm not gonna lie, I was struggling as he wouldn't stay in the Ultra Balls I was throwing and he was slowly taking out my team, and this happened like 6 more times, so I just threw a Master Ball and called it a day. Hopefully I didn't need that Master Ball, and with that we have saved the world and everything goes back to normal. Archie reflects on what he's done and turns over a new leaf as he gives back the orb he stole, and now we can continue our story, so let's move on. I decided I was going to face the last gym leader, but since there's a lot of gym trainers here, I took advantage of that, and now we have a Hariyama and Cacturn. Let's face Wallace, and with Mega Sceptile we take out his whole team with ease. Now that we have 8 badges, it's time to catch the final group of Pokemon we need, so let's get started. In Victory Road, we catch 2 Loudreds and 2 Larions. In Evergrande City, we catch another Whelmer, a Luvdisc, and a Corsola, and that Corsola took about 30 minutes to find. The next place I go to is Meteor Falls, but since we have Waterfall, we can explore a different area where I pick up another Barboach and 3 Bagons. And yeah, it turns out Barboach did have a spot that was easier to find, so there's that. In the Safari Zone, I pick up a Seakeen. In Mount Pyre, I catch another Meditite since I evolved the one I had. And if we use Dive, I grab a Lantern, Chinchou, Clam Pearl, and a Relicanth. That also took another 30 minutes to find. And then around Route 128, I find 2 Horsies using a Super Rod. And since I caught a bunch of Pokemon, I ended up getting enough XP to evolve Loudred into an Exploud. With only the Elite 4 left to do, I decided to take a break from that and see what I needed to get again, like Nincada, Machop, Magnemite, and finish evolving all the Pokemon I need to do by level up. And again, I did this off screen, but I can show you how I did it for most of these Pokemon. So pretty much I used that lucky egg I stole from that Pelipper a while ago, and using that I switched train facing any trainer past Lily Cove until I couldn't no more. So once I ran out of trainers, I went to Victory Road and fought these 2 trainers over and over again to get all these guys. And we got some really cool ones like Salamence, Wolrin, Aggron, Magnezone, and yeah, that's about it really. The next type of Pokemon I wanted to evolve were the ones that needed stone evolutions, and oh man, it was so bad. Now there is like maybe 4 stones you can find in the open world, but there's barely any guys, as they all say the same thing: do the super training. Now I wouldn't mind doing it, but I'm playing on my big DS, wink wink, and it was 2 times harder than it needed to be, so I was rage quitting every 30 minutes because it was so bad. So pretty much it's a mini game where you play dodgeball, and the goal is to hit them in a certain area to score points, and with those points you need to get a certain amount to win. So not only do you need to get all these points, you got to make sure you don't get hit so you don't lose points, and you got to beat it as fast as you can, because if you don't, you just get a random rock. Now the thing is, they're cheating. They have these boulders for soccer balls that chase you around, and it's never just one, it's like multiple at a time. It feels almost impossible to dodge at times, and there's so many different types. It's crazy. In the end, I was able to get everything, but I think I left a piece of myself there because it was bad. I had to get just about every stone, and now I have Ludicolo, Gallade, Delcatty, Vileplume, Blossom, Roserade, Wigglytuff, Starmie, Ninetales, and Raichu. This stuff was no joke, and I lied. I do need one more stone, a Dawn Stone. It turns out I got the wrong one for Snorunt, but I really don't want to do any more super training, so I'll hold it off for now. The last thing I did was breed a couple Pokemon. Now most of them didn't need anything special, but there was like 2 that needed a special item to get their baby form, like a Sea Incense to get a Zuril and a Rose Incense to get a Badoo. After that, all I did was get a male and female Roselia and slap them in the daycare and run around until I got an egg. I also put a Zubat with a Soothbell in the front of my party, as it's the only Pokemon that I need to do a friendship evolution for, so it helped a lot just running around, and soon enough I was able to get all the eggs I needed. So that's when I switched Zubat for a Macargo, as its ability Flame Body also has an effect outside of battle, as it cuts the amount of steps you need to hatch an egg by half. And with that, I got Azurill, Igglybuff, Badoo, Pichu, Chingling, Natu, Fanfi, and why not. Now that I mostly have everything, let's fight Wally for the last time, and just like any other time, he didn't stand a chance. But he did give me something I needed desperately, a Dawn Stone, so I was not gonna do super training again, so thank you Wally, you saved me from some nonsense. With that, we faced the Elite Four and we squashed every single one of them, and it's been so long since I played it like this. It was really fun. Now that it's time to face the champion, I thought it was going to be another sweep, but it wasn't that easy, as his Metagross really lives up to his name as his ace. At this point in the match, I had 3 Pokemon left, and not all of them were on full HP. So once he Mega Evolves, our Crunch didn't do nearly as much as I thought, as they used Meteor Mash to knock us out. We sent out Sceptile, but we didn't have a good counter, so we used X-Scissor and we barely do anything, as they used Giga Impact to finish us off. So with Flygon being our last hope, we used Crunch, but it wasn't enough. But that's when I remembered that Giga Impact is a 2-turn move, and now Metagross can't move at all. So with another Crunch, we knocked them out, becoming the new champion. Yeah, we would have lost that real quick. Now that we've beaten the game, the job's not finished, and we still have a couple more Pokemon to catch and evolve. But before we can do anything else, we have our last battle with May at the place where it all started, Route 103, and this time she has a fully evolved team. Unfortunately for her, we still beat her up with no problem, but it's the thought that counts. With that, we make our way to the post game, the Delta episode. Now usually I wouldn't do the post game, but we do need to do this for 2 Pokemon, so I'll keep this story nice and simple. May gets robbed, Wally gets robbed, Matt gets robbed, Archie gets robbed by a girl named Zinnia, and to make things worse, Steven gives us a call just to tell us a rock is gonna hit Earth and we're all gonna die. Again. What's the solution? Collect these shards that hold something called infinity energy, where we will slap them inside a rocket, shoot it into space, make a wormhole where the meteorite will go inside of it, and go somewhere else. Hopefully. Anyway, Xenia from earlier says that's a dumb idea and destroys the last piece to the rocket and runs away. It turns out she knows how to save the world, as her ancestors have told her something like this has happened before, so that's why she robbed everyone for their keystones, as she knows how to summon Rayquaza, and with all the keystones she robbed, she's gonna Mega Evolve Rayquaza and go to space and destroy the meteorite. But it doesn't work out, as she can't get him to Mega Evolve, but that's when the meteorite that we never gave back starts to glow and Rayquaza eats it, and that gives it the energy to Mega Evolve, and now we get to catch it. So I throw a quick ball as a joke, but we actually end up catching it first try, so that was crazy. With that, Xenia gives up and tells us that we're the chosen ones and teaches us the final thing before we can head to space. And with that, we learn Dragon Ascend and face Xenia before we head off to space and destroy that meteorite. But something starts to move and it turns out to be the Deoxys, so we fight and we use Dragon Pulse that leaves them on red HP. After that, we start throwing Ultra Balls and they use Psycho Boost, doing a bunch of damage, but their special attack harshly goes down. After that, we throw 2 more Ultra Balls, but nothing happens, and he uses Recover and then use Psycho Boost to knock us out. After that, we send out Sceptile and use 3 Ultra Balls to finally catch it. Once we head back to Earth, Xenia leaves us a note and she's off to do her own thing, and everything is back to normal. With that, we finally can take it easy and see a shooting star show that we wanted to see before everything had happened. And that's the end of the post game. Now that we got 2 legendary Pokemon, let's keep the streak going and catch all the Regis. So I use a guide to open up all the chambers and solve all the puzzles we need to actually encounter them, and the first one I encounter is Regirock. I tried catching it with a quick ball, but it broke out, so I used Dragon Claw with Sceptile to weaken it and then used 3 Ultra Balls to catch it. Next is Ice, but this time I forgot to use a quick ball, so we had to weaken it with Bug Buzz, and after using 8 Ultra Balls, we still couldn't catch it, and with Masquerain going down, we send out Salamence and just start throwing different types of Pokeballs in my bag, and once we throw another Ultra Ball, we catch it. The last one is Registeel. With Masquerain, we use Bug Buzz to weaken it and then throw 1 Ultra Ball to catch it. You don't see that often. I'm honestly surprised that didn't take multiple attempts, but maybe I'm just used to things never going my way when it comes to catching legendary Pokemon. Alright, we're almost done, and now we only have a handful of Pokemon to get, so the easiest one to do was Snorunt, as I had a Dust Stone for a while now, so I just used that, and now we have a Frostlass. The next Pokemon I have to evolve is Feebas, but luckily for me, I was grabbing a couple berries as we played through the game, and I had just enough berries to make enough blue Pokeblocks to fully max out Feebas's beauty stat, and after leveling it up 1 time, we get a Milotic. The next Pokemon I go for is Anorith, since I got the fossil a while ago, but just never revived it, so we do that, and I ended up resetting 16 times to get a female one, so that we can also get a baby form as well. And the last Pokemon I need to get is actually a gift Pokemon Steven gives to us, being Beldum. And now we just have to fully evolve it and get 2 eggs. And training was actually really easy, as I just went to the Elite Four and battled them, and they gave out a lot of XP, as their Pokemon are around the 70s now. Now the only part I wasn't able to do after evolving everything is being able to get a Ditto, as it's a Mirage spot and it only appears at a certain time, but I swear my clock is broken, as when I started the game it was nighttime even though it was like 5 in the afternoon, so I really don't know what time it is in game. So in the end, the only lines I wasn't able to get is the Sceptile and Metagross line. What a bummer. With that, I have completed the Living Dex to Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, and in total we caught 186 Pokemon, and it took 50 hours to do, which is pretty crazy as I've done Living Dexes before, but it took 90 plus hours to do. What do you think? Should I do it like this from now on, or do it like how I've done it in the past? Here's a video where I beat the game first and then I catch everything after to complete a Living Dex. Have a great day, and until next time, see ya.